Alright, so now we have this thing saved, and it's a single solid body. Everything's been blended, all the fillets have been added, and the only thing left we have to do is add the propeller and engine and everything to the back. But what I want to do real quick is I'm going to go into Tools and come into the Feature Statistics, and I want to show you just what in here takes up most of our rebuild. Now you can see here the mirror took almost 6 seconds, and it was 30% of the rebuild time of the entire model. And part of that is because we added that knit surface inside there. So if we didn't have knit surface in that mirror, we wouldn't have the same amount of rebuild time here. Because you can see down here, knit surface, that took up 1.6 seconds, and that was knitting this this tail fin right here. Some of the other things, some of the fillets took a lot of rebuild time. Most of these surfaces really weren't too bad, but we know some of these that we had the curvature relation going across, it took some extra time to process. And really, most of these numbers are pretty low. A lot of these sketches, a lot of these extruded surfaces, they take next to nothing. So this is something to consider, and this is part of the reason why you work at with half the model for as long as you can. This rebuild right here would really kill it if you were constantly mirroring things across, keeping them in the model, knitting them together, doing things like that. So if you come back and you look here at the feature tree, we have a lot of these surfaces, curves. We have some delete faces and things like that, and then all the fillets and all the surface knits and things like that. These are all left to the end of the model, and that's really based on rebuild time. Once we have freeze feature available, maybe that won't really be as much of an issue, but it's typically good practice. You leave these till later in the model, and it certainly helps with updates and things. You don't have to worry too much about fillets failing or things like that, especially if they're farther down in the model. And you can always drag this back up here and go back and work with it, so you don't have to rebuild it every time. You can come back in here and you can see the feature statistics tree still has a lot of these features in it, but you can see that they're being grayed out because they aren't rebuilding. So you can see our total rebuild time is just under 19 seconds. Let's roll that back to the end. So you can see now that these features aren't grayed out anymore. Alright, I'm going to save it one more time, and let's start to think about adding the propeller to the back of this thing. Alright, I'm going to turn on some of these blueprints again, and let's think about this here. Alright, so now keep in mind that this entire model here is a solid body. We're still going to work in surfaces back here for the most part, and then convert them to a solid afterwards. There's really no reason that I had to make a solid out of this. I just simply wanted to show you that you can knit everything together and end up with a solid model. And I could come in here and do any solid operation I wanted to. I could draw a circle and then come in here and extrude cut. Let's do through all, direction 2, through all. And now we have extruded hole through the model here. Just anything, just like our normal operations. And we could actually come back in here, use the delete face tool, and let's delete that face and okay that. Now we've converted it all back to a surface. We come back up here, we now have this, it's a single surface body, but we've converted it back to a surface. And just for kicks, let's see what kind of rebuild time that took here. Well, you can see the the driving feature is still that mirror, so it really didn't take that much processing power. But obviously that's not something we want to do. We don't need a big hole through the side of this thing. It probably wouldn't fly very well. But I just wanted to show you that you can do that. Alright, so we need to add this propeller on here, and what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and turn this blueprint off. And I'm actually going to sketch on this back face here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a construction line going from there to there. So that's fully defined. It's vertical. It snaps to basically the end of that line where our mirror was. I'm going to just add a circle in here and define this circle. Let's make that 550. And remember, we're working with a solid here. I'm just going to go ahead and do a solid extrude. And let's look at this right plane. Let's turn this side blueprint on. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Let's make this 500. And let's just taper it down. Let's taper it down 15 degrees. Oh, not 315 degrees. Let's make it 10. Alright, so 10 degrees taper. I'm going to turn merge results off for now, 500 millimeters, and hit OK. And let's turn this blueprint back off. Alright, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the dome feature. And I'm going to select that face. I'm going to choose elliptical dome. And let's just drive this number up, see what happens. Alright, so you can see here, at least what I'm trying to show you is if you use this elliptical dome option, it's actually adjusting this. So I'm going to leave it at 150 millimeters, that elliptical dome. It's always good to leave the show preview on, and hit OK, and let's see what we get here. Alright, not necessarily what we wanted, so I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to measure this just to see what we ended up with. Okay, so we ended up with a pretty random number. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is sketch on this right plane. I'm going to use convert entities intersection curve with that face. And you can see it gave us a line where that actually intersected here. And this will allow me to take a spline and make that. I'm going to add a construction line from the midpoint just to make sure that this is horizontal here. I'm going to give the end here a vertical relation, and this edge here I am going to make tangent. Alright, so you can see already we've got an issue that pops up when we try to make it tangent. So I'm going to use that convert entities intersection curve again, and I don't need both of them. I'm just going to keep this top one, make it a construction. I'm going to rotate this around so you can see, and let's select that and see if this will let us do it. Okay. Alright. So now if I actually were to come back and trim, make this non-construction and actually trim this line, this would become underdefined because we're using the midpoint there, and I'll show you that. So you can see now it's no longer defined because that was the midpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make that a construction, and I'm going to finish this off with just a short line there. And in our solid operation still, I'm going to go ahead and revolve that around that line. And I am going to merge results, but I want to go down